Tifa?
Cloud. We have to get back to the slums, right now!
Yeah.
I didn't want to drag Aerith into all this.
She'll understand.
How do you two know each other?
I saved her. She saved me. Round and round it goes.
And that's all there is to it? Sure there isn't something else going on?
Damn it.
Welcome back to part 22 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where today we're immediately jumping right into the fight with Abzu. Don Caneo's probably at some point chained up, but clearly no longer, pets that he keeps in the sewers deep beneath his manor. Yes, he has a trapdoor in his bedroom that directly links to the sewers. It's so unsubtle that he's supposed to be, you know, dirty, that even though he's in like a clean palace, he's directly tied to the sewers. I thought that was even in the original, I thought that was a nice little almost like symbolism of the character. Whereas like, even though he's in this big flashy manor, he isn't a person who deserves wealth. He isn't a person of actual wealth. And so having it that his base literally is linked to the sewers, it's like that makes sense. Like that he's still a almost sewer cretin person. But our fight against Abzu, your main focus is going to be those horns. You shatter those horns, you get a free stagger, basically. Or a free nigh-on stagger if it doesn't do the full stretch. This is also the only boss fight of this chapter, so if you're going for hard mode, you can be a little bit more spending on magic, especially because this is the start of the chapter, so you've just got all your MP back. The only thing I will warn you, though, is that just because this is the boss of the chapter, doesn't mean this is the only relatively difficult encounter. On the opposite end of this chapter, there's going to be a lot of enemies we fight in a small vicinity, and that can get kind of tough if you're not prepared for it. So I'd recommend, like, I'd say use magic if you're going to use magic. Like, hit those elemental weaknesses and resistances to, like, turn the tide as much as possible against Abzu. But try to leave some, or what I did in my hard mode playthrough is that I put magic only on one character and didn't let the other two use any during the fight against Abzu. So then it was only one character that had to just become the physical type afterwards because they had no MP after it. Like, strategies like that are not a bad idea and something that I can recommend. We've still got the Thunder Elemental Thunder Gloves on Tifa, I believe, so all of our hits are doing like a little bit of electric damage as well. You see, I'm really trying to push in because I'm so close to getting that stagger. As the fight goes on, the things that you need to pay attention to during this fight are the puddles on the ground and the giant pipes on the wall. When he jumps out of the way, he will eventually jump back in, but occasionally he will do an action where he will trigger the water flow first. So he won't always just pounce immediately. It's just because it's phase 1, that's all he's really doing. But as it goes on throughout the course of the fight, when he jumps up, he will eventually start doing other things. So just be wary of where those puddles are when you act, and be wary of those giant pipes. But when it's the giant pipes that are going to go off, the game makes it very clear in indicating to you what's going on, so you really shouldn't be hit by it. It's just one of those things where, in the hard mode, in the same vein as the Warden that we fought back in, like, what was it, Chapter 5, the group or arena-wide AoE will come out quicker in hard mode, so you need to be wary of that. Breaking into Phase 2, the Horn will start having elemental affinities. So, similar to the Hell House, it is a little bit of color coding. However, unlike the Hell House, this only applies to the Horn and not the Beast. So at this point in the fight, I usually stop caring about the horn. Which is why I was so content summoning Ifrit, because I was like, well, the thing itself is weak to fire, it's just the horn that's going to be a problem. So it will now be using fire elemental based things from time to time. Not too much, and especially not too much in normal. But this is where it is. You see where the camera's gone up with it when it's gone to do it. So it's introducing you to how way the backwater blast works. The one giant pipe is open, so that half of the arena, it will hurt you if you're there when it comes out. Which is kind of weird. Like, you would have thought it would just like maybe shove you, because realistically it shouldn't do insane damage, but I guess like it might be toxic water or something, so it just hurts you in that regard. But either way, it hurts, so don't do it. And when he uses backwash, obviously be wary of the puddles on the ground because they're about to splash up. Your best friend with magic usage is good old Arcane Ward. It's why you're seeing me lean towards it. And in hard mode especially, when you can get like a free extra Fire Auger, because you're bound to have like maxed out elemental materia. I had to think what they were called for a second. By the time you do it. Also, this is a nice touch. If you hit Abzu with enough fire magic, the fucker will catch fire outright. And you'll take a lot of chip damage from the fire, where that will just take little bits of pieces here and there. And eventually he'll dive into the water out the way to put himself out. If you can hit him hard enough whilst he's burning, you can like stagger him, and then he'll take the burn damage whilst like, like half knocked out. Making it a real nice chain combo almost. Of just, if you can keep up the pressure, you can make it so he doesn't get the chance to dive into the water. Be wary not to get too close to the blasts. Even though you won't get hit by the main hit, if you get too close to it, you will get poisoned, which is what's happened to Aerith. But this fight's almost done, because Ifrit's just going to rip it in half. Look at that, like 4,700. Yeah, it's nearly done. It really doesn't have much to show for it anymore. Which is something that's actually, I always kind of forget about. Like, you look at the health bars and they move so slowly at the start, but the moment you start getting a rhythm, they drop. Those health bars sink on the bosses. And it's really satisfying every time it happens to just see them die. As we finally take down Abzu.
There it goes.
Do you think it lives down here, or...?
It was probably Corneo's pet. And we were dinner.
Hey, you don't believe that crazy story of his, do you? Shinra wouldn't sacrifice a whole sector just to take out Avalanche, would they? Destroying part of the city, killing all those people just to get at us?
I don't know. Is Corneo the kind of guy who'd make up shit just to screw with you?
I wouldn't put it past him.
But if he was telling the truth... And there's still a chance he was, isn't there? Then we should go. And if it turns out he was lying, then so what? Right?
Tifa!
I knew it. These tunnels are all connected.
What is it?
I'm pretty sure we can use these tunnels to make our way back to Sector 7. The sewers under Sector 6 and 7 should be connected. If you get in trouble, just follow the stench.
Another one of those lessons?
An avalanche thing, actually. We use them to move around the Undercity, in emergencies.
Twist, I'm aware that in a lot of videos in this project, there's been giant chunks where I just haven't talked. Where sometimes, like, you know, even the last part where I wanted to keep in the whole actual dance routine at the Honeybee Inn without talking over it or interrupting any of it. I'm aware this Let's Play doesn't have anywhere near as much commentary as some of the other stuff that I've done. But to be honest, I'm kind of appreciating that. I'm appreciating being able to record it and let the footage speak for itself. It's one of those games where, yeah, I know I always stop talking for the cutscenes anyway, but this is one of these games that I genuinely feel like does an amazing job speaking for itself. No one needs to tell you how things are and what this means and what that means. You can watch it and be like, oh wow, that does that. Oh wow, that's cool, sort of thing. Like, you can, it's a really good game in the way that it can introduce things to you without needing to bog you down in explanations. Obviously I do it because I'm a Let's Player and I have to talk about something, but I think it is a really strong charm about this game. And obviously there's going to be other Let's Plays I'll do where, you know, like even when I was doing things like Castlevania, or when I do another Idea Factory game where there's a lot less talking scenes, so I end up doing the voice for them, or, you know, having to talk on the in-between a lot more. That will make up for it. Having this where there's a lot of moments where I'm not talking so much, I don't mind. I'm enjoying just showcasing this game and showing why I feel this was the game of the year last year, and what actually got game of the year was fucking a joke. And it isn't even me like trying to be like, oh, anti Last of Us 2. It really isn't. I personally don't like it, but that doesn't mean I was going to strip it of game of the year if I could see why it deserved it. My problem is that no game under the sun deserved as many awards at the Game of the Year awards as it fucking got. Nothing did. It's something that I always commemorate and congratulate the Steam Awards on. The whole, you can only nominate one thing, that's it, good luck kind of attitude to it. You can't just nominate the same game for everything. It has to be, if you nominate, say, oh, I don't know, Lost Judgment. Oh, no, it's not on Steam. It's a bad example, actually. But let's just pretend Lost Judgment for, I don't know, Game of the Year. Or, I was going to say Returnal. That's also not on Steam. Anyway, if you voted Lost Judgment for Game of the Year, you then couldn't put Lost Judgment on, I don't know, Best Music. You'd have to put something else. It wouldn't let you put it twice. Or if you put Final Fantasy XIV as Best Ongoing, you then couldn't put it on Best Story. And I think that's the way forward. No game under the sun deserves any more awards than that. Listen, I've said it before, that's like, for me, my ideal, I think you can get, I can be understanding with 2 awards. I think that's my limit. Like, if you say, like, it had an amazing character-driven narrative and a fantastic soundtrack, but not much else going for it, if it wins an award for both, then I will clap my hand and say, yeah, fair enough. It's when it's a game that's literally is nominated for everything and then wins 90% of them that I raise an eyebrow, because it's like, no, you don't deserve any of that. And not only do you not deserve it, allowing that to be that way is actively harming the industry, in my opinion, because you're minimalizing and restricting the success of others just to blow smoke up the arse of one. And that was the reason why so many people were so aggressively against Last of Us 2. It wasn't just because they were bitter that Last of Us 2 won over their favourite game. No. No, and if you honestly think that, I don't know what to fucking tell you. It's because it won 9 or so awards. It didn't deserve it. No fucking game deserved that. Not even some of my favourite games of all times deserved that level. Even if Last of Us 2 genuinely was like the best thing ever, which, like I said, in my personal opinion it isn't, but that's just my opinion, it still would have attracted a very high level of negativity and disgust that it won that many awards. It's why people are so begrudged and already bitter that the fact that Cyberpunk and Deathloop have been nominated for so many awards this year. Because Deathloop, a lot of people thought was just okay anyway, and so the fact it's been nominated for so much, it's like, oh god, it's because it advertised a lot, it's going to be the award stealer of everything this year, isn't it? Great, fucking fantastic. And Cyberpunk doesn't fucking work. The game doesn't work, and it didn't come out this year. Well, I say that, you could argue that it did technically come out this year because they tried to fucking fix it this year. But it's still, it released last year in the abysmal state it was in. It doesn't deserve it, yet you know it's going to now, because, you know, business hands and lots of money, it's going to win a whole bunch. And it's just going to make people even more bitter, because it already feels like the awards shows, you know, just shit. Like, I think that's kind of a common agreement with a lot of people nowadays, that the Game Awards had something going for a while, but around, at least for me, around 2018-ish, it started to dip, and it's just dipped harder and harder every year.
Won't be tough.
And it just feels like too much journalism and business control has got into it. When journalists too often are just fucking wrong or extremely biased in making sure something doesn't get any kind of respect because they don't like how the fans disagreed with them, or making sure that everyone soaks up one particular product despite the fact no one likes it, cough cough Devil May Cry, the reboot versus DMC5, where every single person under the sun hated the reboot and it's drastically undersold, and journalists desperately wanted it to do well because it was an Americanized version of Devil May Cry. So if they could make it do well, they could have more control of the media with it. And so when it flopped, they've been bitter ever since, and despite the fact that literally everyone said DMC5 should have been on the Game of the Year list, they conveniently made it so it didn't show up on it. You know, like, it's that kind of level of bitterness and severe bias that it's this corrupted and, like, rotted into the Game Awards. I'm saying it's always been there. I'm not going to pretend and be naive to it and pretend it was a magical time before then. It's just got a hell of a lot worse. It really, really has. And it's depressing to see, because the Game Awards should be a celebration of video games, not a celebration of one game that journalists pick out of a hat. And because they want it to be the new thing. And even if you're not that much of a video game player, if you're into, say, anime, for example, you're going through a near identical situation to what the Devil May Cry crowd went through in 2013 when the reboot dropped. And it's called the Cowboy Bebop live action, where all the journalists are hammering to its defense and saying, oh, it's supposed to be bad, it's bad on purpose, because that's the charm of it. And everyone's like, what the fuck are you on about? What, like, you know what I mean? Like, the people that are, like, into the anime crowd or the Netflix crowd are seeing firsthand what the gaming field has had to go through for fucking years. DMC is just one example. It's just the biggest example I can think of, because Devil May Cry is one of my all-time favorite franchises. And I remember that time so distinctly.
That's a power.
I remember how much bitching journalists did when they didn't get what they wanted, and how bitter they are to it still to this very day, when the entire industry forgot about it, and yet they were adamant on still bringing it up. Like, literally, Devil May Cry 5 was about to come out, and every single journalist article on it was saying DMC5 is good and all, but let's not forget the reboot. And it's like, no, let's please forget the reboot. And I say this as someone who doesn't mind the gameplay of the reboot. I've said it a couple of times. I genuinely don't mind the gameplay as its own beast. But that's the problem. It's the moment you compare it to the series it's rebooting, or was attempting to, is the moment all the problems start. And I can imagine, I haven't watched the live action Cowboy Bebop, and I've no real interest personally. I kind of enjoy my memories of the original, and I don't want to just... that was enough for me, if that makes sense, like the animated. I don't really want to watch other takes of it. As much as I'm down for the idea of alternate takes of existing media. So, I mean, if we didn't, we wouldn't get remakes, like, you know, the game I'm literally playing right now. But it doesn't mean I'm always gonna want to dive in on it. And it was one of those things with the Cowboy Bebop, even ignoring, like, the adverts and the whole Netflix track record of live actions of animes being extremely poor. It was just one of those things where I was just like, no, I'm not up for it. I'm not up for... I'd like the original take, and I don't want to just bother doing anything else. Like, regardless of... Even if it was, like, the highest quality thing and everyone was ranting and raving about how good it was, I probably still wouldn't touch it that much. Because it's just me. Like, once I've set my mind on those sort of things, it's hard to change them. I mean, hell, the idea of putting love and time and effort into this channel, instead of just treating it as only as a hobby, took 6 years. So you see what I mean? Like, it takes a long time, and even then, it's something I'm going to try and put more into action next year. Which, if you didn't watch the update video and don't know what I'm talking about, because I did, like, right when I started this Let's Play, it's basically that I want to try and commit to putting a lot more time and effort into this channel next year. Instead of just treating it as the thing I do in between my actual work shifts, where I just play video games and chat shit. I want to do more. The glimmers of it you might have already seen when I did the Ninja War review. Like, I want to do more little things. I want to put in more effort. I want to actually get time for fucking live streams. Don't know when I'm going to get them in, because, like, but the way my schedule basically is right now, ignoring work, because I work in the evenings. My actual, like, real life job is in the evening, so all the recordings I do is always in the daytime, or in the mornings usually. Which is why in some videos I might sound a little out of it, because if I've just done, like, a very late shift, and I didn't go to bed till, like, half midnight, and then I'm up at 8, just had breakfast, and then I'm doing the recording for this, you get the idea. There's still a little bit of wear and tear from the previous evening kicking in.
So this is where
But the point is, my schedule my morning is do my Genshin dailies, because you know that's my even though it's not a full MMO, that's my MMO morning startup. Some people have Final Fantasy, some people unfortunately still do World of Warcraft nowadays because they want to hope it gets better, but it really hasn't in like 3 or 4 expansions. So I feel for you. Well, if you're like a long time World of Warcraft fan, I fucking feel for you, dude. Because I remember that game in its prime, and I jumped ship because it was like 1 or 2 expansions in a row just weren't really in it for me, and I went, you know what, I think I got to put this down before it just gets worse. And from what I've heard, it's only got worse. Or like, even like people are like into Elder Scrolls Online, like everyone has their MMO-esque thing. Mine's become very much Genshin. I'd love to pick up FF14, but then I'd end up losing half a day to MMOs because I'd be doing all my Genshin dailies and my Final Fantasy dailies if I did that. So it is what it is. So I do my dailies, I then go straight to my recording. If it's a smaller Let's Play project, like say when it was Castlevania, because the videos for the most part were easier to render because, you know, it wasn't as highly detailed, the frame rate wasn't as big as a concern, I would do other things whilst it was processing. Because I process it straight through my PS5, because I record everything from my PS5. I don't have a proper capture card, because, you know, I don't have money. And I'd either like play what I want to play or record more footage. It's usually that one if it's a bigger project. And do writing, because I aspire to be an author, and so I've been writing a bunch of books. I've got 3 books under my belt, I just haven't published any of them. And I'm not entirely sure that I will. I've talked about it before that I will, I was going to, and absolutely, and everything else. But now I'm working on a new book, and being able to do those first 3 over the course of a few years, because it was like a 4 or 5 year gauntlet doing the Mary and Vincent book trilogy, which is just what they're called. I learned a lot, and I found a different forms of writing styles. I found my nature of planning, and it's like the new book I'm working on, which is an entirely original. I say entirely original, so is Mary and Vincent, but in a different sense. Like, it's not to do with Mary and Vincent. It's an entirely unique thing of its own, well-being. I'm getting the chance to execute everything I've learned, and so far, and I don't want to get too cocky, but so far it's been turning out really well, and my test audience are really enjoying it. But there's been some criticisms, and I can get to work on them as we go, but as a whole, it's been very positive. So I'll probably end up pushing for that when I eventually finish it and do like 6 more fucking drafts. So I'm usually writing a lot in my spare time. And then if it's a bigger project, like, you know, with the Final Fantasy, when I set this to process, I just put my PS5 in rest mode and come back in a few hours to see if it's done. And when I come back, if it's not done, I will just leave it on without firing anything up to let it process, because my internet's not quick enough to justify doing other stuff. Like, it will take all day to process, and it could go wrong. So it just ends up not being worth it. Which is a shame. One day I'd love to... It'll probably be, like... Once I get some more money together properly, maybe, you know, meet someone and get my life in a bit more order, and maybe even one day, you know, move, try and get to a place with better internet spots and like get a better, maybe like a fiber line and whatnot. Then maybe it'll be a bit smoother and I'll get more free time and I won't have to worry about upload timing. But my internet is something like 20 megabytes download, 9 upload. And so every time I'm doing these sort of things, I have to be wary of that. Like, it was worse on PS4 because the PS4's software and how it registered internet connection wasn't brilliant. But it has been good enough to survive some live streams. There's been a couple live streams where it's just dipped for no good reason, but for the most part it's been okay. So it's like it becomes a matter of, well, I end up losing sometimes up until like 2-3 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's like, okay, but I also want to do writing, but I've also got work at about 7 p.m. I end up not getting as much time as I'd like, which is why, like, when I talk about recording sessions in the game, it's usually a day on the weekend, and I'll just commit to doing like 4 or 5 hours straight on it. Or like, in some instances, like, because I do 4 or 5 hours straight, I then spend the opportunity by not playing anything else to do what I actually want. Or I end up having to actually give up writing time, which I don't like doing because of how much I enjoy it, to fit it in. Yeah, I'm not working every day, so that's also a plus. Like, if I was doing all 7 days every evening, I think this schedule would have changed long ago. But as it stands, I get to get away with it. But I need to actually talk about what's going on, even though there's a cutscene now.
Damn it. I can't stop thinking about what Corneo said.
I know. Me too.
It's gotta be a trick. There's no way they'd go that far. But what if Corneo really was telling the truth? We have to get there in time to stop it. We have to.
Right.
Aerith, what are you not telling me?
Huh?
Guys, come on. We gotta keep moving.
Coming! I'll go first. Okay, Aerith, your turn.
On my way. Here we go.
Almost there. That was close.
Thanks, you saved me.
Least I could do.
Hear that, Cloud? Come on.
Focus.
Still thinking about the plate?
Yeah.
The future isn't set in stone. That's what I always tell myself.
Yeah? I hope you're right.
How about this then? Think of something fun. After saving Sector 7, you're gonna...
I'm gonna... go shopping. Topside. I'll buy stuff for the bar. Decorations, coasters.
Can I come?
You'd better.
Then it's a date.
Cloud can carry all our stuff.
He'll be our pack chocobo.
What was that about me?
Nothing.
Huh?
Huh? No way!
Come on, Tifa! Cloud! Hold on tight!
On three, okay? 1, 2, 3!
Sorry about that.
No need to be.
Now we're on the other side of that and we've got a minute left. I should really talk about everything we've done. We've picked up a new weapon for Tifa, which has Star Shower tied to it, which is a god tier skill you're going to want to keep for most of the game. So the fact that I've been grinding it out and spamming it with her is like, it's a desperate effort to get it as soon as possible. The actual sewer bit we just did there is a lot of just back and forth and pull switches. It isn't much of a puzzle. The only thing that's to be wary of is that a lot of the enemies here are status condition inflicting. So if you can make sure you have resistances to that on your party, like I had sleep resistance on Tifa, you should be good to go. And it's not just a matter of having a materia that says resist on it. There are some materias that will say make you strong in something, but will also make you resistant in this, like it's in small text. But either way, I'm going to wrap it up here. So the next time on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we're going to continue our journey through the sewers and see where it ends up taking us. Hopefully we can get back to Sector 7 before we find out the worst possible way if Don Corneo's words were true or not, but who knows. Until then though, you guys take care now. Peace.